In the Antarctic desert, where the wind howls like an ancient spirit and snow covers everything with an endless white blanket, lies the Icewind Research Station. Winter in Antarctica is a time when nature tests the strength of all living things. Only the most resilient creatures can withstand the icy cold and merciless storms. On one such frosty day, when the temperature dropped to -40 degrees, the station's animal rescue team received an alarming message from a patrol flying over the area in a helicopter. On the endless icy plain, they spotted a lone penguin that looked extremely emaciated. The team, led by biologist Maria Sokolova, immediately began preparing for the trip. Maria, a woman with a strong character and a kind heart, had already encountered many difficult animal rescue cases in these harsh lands. Her team donned bright red jumpsuits that stood out against the dazzling white snow and loaded everything they needed into the sled: medical equipment, warm blankets, thermoses of hot water, and a portable heater. The wind lashed their faces, but the team's determination was stronger than any storm. When they arrived at their destination, a heartbreaking sight met their eyes. A lone emperor penguin, with its majestic black and white plumage, stood in the middle of the icy desert, surrounded only by the endless horizon. But its proud appearance was marred. Its entire body was covered with thousands of barnacles, parasitic crustaceans that clung to its feathers like armor. These barnacles, resembling small volcanoes, clung to the penguin so tightly that it could barely move. His wings hung limply, and his eyes, usually full of life, were dull with fatigue. The penguin was shivering, and his weak breath barely raised clouds of vapor in the frosty air. Maria assessed the situation and immediately gave instruction. "We need to act quickly but carefully," she said, her voice calm but firm. "He is exhausted, and any sudden movement could aggravate his condition." The team set up a temporary rescue station on the snow. They spread out a thermal mat, installed a windbreak, and connected a portable heater to create comfortable conditions for the penguin. One of the team members, a young veterinarian named Alexei, cautiously approached the bird, holding a soft thermal blanket in his hands. He moved slowly so as not to tear the penguin, and finally covered it with the blanket to keep its body warm. An examination showed that the penguin was in critical condition. Barnacles, which usually cling to rocks or ship hulls, had somehow settled on the bird's body, probably because it had been in the water for a long time, weakened and unable to clean itself. Their hard shells had grown into the skin, leaving bleeding wounds and depriving the penguin of some of its feathers. Every step caused him pain, and the weight of the parasites literally bent him to the ground. Maria and Alexei took out a medical kit, sterile instruments, antiseptics, and special tweezers for removing crustaceans. The process was painfully slow. Each shell had to be removed with surgical precision so as not to damage the already wounded skin. The shells fell off with a dull thud, landing on the snow like small stones. Beneath them were patches of inflamed skin, some covered with crusts of dried blood. The team worked in silence, broken only by the howling wind. From time to time, one of the rescuers would stroke the penguin's head, whispering words of encouragement. "Hang in there, little one. We're with you." The penguin, as if understanding their intentions, did not resist, only occasionally making a faint, hoarse sound. After 2 hours of intense work, the team removed most of the parasites. The pile of shed shells on the snow looked like a strange installation, evidence of how much excess weight this little creature had been carrying. Alexei administered antibiotics and a glucose solution to the penguin to keep it strong. Maria carefully examined the wounds and treated them with antiseptic gel. To prevent hypothermia, the penguin was wrapped in another warm blanket, and a heater set to gentle heat was placed nearby. The bird's pulse was weak but stable, which gave them hope. The decision was made. The penguin needed to be taken to the station for further treatment. The team loaded it onto a sled, laying it on a soft bedding. During the trip, Maria sat next to it, making sure it was breathing evenly. It was still too weak to stand, but sometimes it fluttered its wings, as if trying to remember what it was like to be free. At the station, the penguin was placed in a special temperature-controlled isolation chamber. Here began the long process of recovery. Over the next few days, the team worked in shifts, caring for the bird. They fed it a special mixture of ground fish and nutritional supplements, gradually increasing the portions to help it regain its strength. The wounds were cleaned twice a day, applying healing ointment and checking for signs of infection. The penguin, which the team affectionately named Baran in honor of Antarctic storms, began to show signs of improvement. On the third day, he tried to stand up for the first time, although his movements were clumsy. This brought smiles to everyone around him. A week later, Baran began to grow new feathers. The skin previously covered with wounds was healing, and his eyes were becoming brighter. The team took him on short walks inside the station so he could stretch his legs. Alexei, who had become most attached to the penguin, often sat with him, telling stories about his life in distant Siberia. "You, Baran, are a real fighter," he said. "If you can survive here, you can survive anywhere." By the end of the third week, Baran had transformed. His feathers, though still not perfect, shone under the light of the lamps, and his movements became confident. He began to make loud cries, as if calling his flock. The team realized that the time to return him to the wild was approaching. They conducted a final examination, making sure that all his wounds had healed and there were no parasites left. Baran passed a swimming test in a small pool at the station, where he happily dived and swam, demonstrating his natural grace. The morning of the launch was clear, with a windless sky rare for Antarctica. The team loaded Baran onto a sled and headed for the coast, where a large flock of emperor penguins had gathered. As they approached, Baran suddenly perked up, stretching his neck and letting out a loud call. The flock responded, and several penguins began to move toward him. Maria carefully lowered Baran onto the ice, and he, a little awkwardly but with obvious enthusiasm, strode toward his fellow penguins. One of the penguins, possibly an old friend, ran closer, and they touched each other's beaks, a touching gesture of reunion. The team stood at a distance, watching Baran join the flock. One of the rescuers wiped away a tear, and Maria smiled and said, "We did it. He's home." They turned the sled around and headed back to the station, taking with them a sense of accomplishment. The story of Baran, the penguin who survived incredible trials thanks to the care of humans, became a legend at the Icewind Station. It reminded everyone that even in the harshest corners of the planet, life can prevail if there are those who are willing to fight for it. If you liked this story, like it, subscribe to the channel, and click on the bell. There are even more heartwarming stories ahead from the world of nature, people and their struggle for life.